With great pleasure, I welcome you to a fresh edition of Law and You. And today we'll be looking at the topic before us, which is on the calls on INEC chair remover, talking about the issues concerning the legal implications of that, what are the conditions necessary for the removal of the INEC chair. Discussing this with me is a vivacious and articulate legal practitioner in the person of Sunday Daudu. Thanks for joining me, Sunday.
I'm grateful. Thank you very much.
Okay, looking at the nitty-gritty about all it takes, at the background of the story, where the CUPP also raised some issues concerning political influence on INEC to deactivate the beavers or to go about irregular ways of conducting the 2023 polls, and stating that INEC should not be deterred about that. And we also, in the course of that, heard another report from the Arewa Citizens Watch for Good Governance that said that INEC chair should be removed, looking at the efforts of political parties, bringing out the issues concerning the beavers deactivation, as allegations had it, and the influence on the INEC chair in that regard. And that they also posited that the INEC leadership is trying to undermine the prospective votes that will be emanating from the northern region. And being that as it is, INEC is supposed to break the silence over allegations against it on scrupulous activities as alleged of it in being influenced to deactivate beavers. And as that arose, it became necessary for us to look at the nitty-gritty about what should be obtainable or what is obtainable in this regard, on what ground can INEC chair be removed, talking about the office of Professor Mahmoud Yakubu. What do you make of this development?
Well, you see, during the electionary, of course, these calls are not strange. They are calls that, of course, are expected, because every political party wants to, of course, interrogate the system to see whether or not there are areas that the handlers, of course, must sit tight to it. So if there is a call for the removal of the chairman of INEC, premise on allegations, of course, those calls are necessary. But the question is that, should the INEC camera be removed merely on grounds of course? In law, whoever alleges must prove. If there are allegations that the chairman is compromising the system, or it tends to compromise the system, of course, they must substantiate such views.
Okay.
Now, let us take it again now sequentially. INEC, that is Independent National Electoral Commission, is an establishment of law. It's a creation of law. If you look at section 153, section 153, subsection 1F, paragraph F, establish the Independent National Electoral Commission. Now, if you go down to section 157 of the same act, that is of the Constitution, provides conditions for the removal of the chairman or any member of the commission. So one of them is that the president, maybe upon receipt of petitions of an allegation, either of misconduct or inability to perform the functions of the office arising from infirmity of the mind or body, or allegations of misconduct, or any other cause of action against the office of the chairman or any other person in the INEC, the president will forward same to be supported by a two-thirds majority of Senate, that the person be removed.
Senate or the National Assembly?
The Senate.
Okay.
The Senate. Upon the receipt of that, in an address supported by two-thirds majority of Senate, we confirm their removal of the chairman of INEC. And if that is achieved, the most senior National Electoral Commissioner will take over in an active capacity to ensure that there is no vacuum, because it is not the chairman of INEC that conducts elections. It is the commission, which is an institution of government, that conducts elections for the purpose of conducting elections, that president, vice president, governors, and all of that. So it is the commission that creates that. Now, the implication of this cause, on one part, is that INEC must show first independence. Because if you look at the name, it's Independent National Electoral Commission, which ordinarily should be independent of even the president, independent of any political party, independent of any other organ of government, including the National Assembly, to do justice to the electorate. So if there are beliefs or perception that the chairman of INEC, body language or other activities are tilted towards favoring one political party or a political candidate, then of course all of this cause becomes imperative.
Okay.
That may be the reason why some persons are making call. That is one part. The second part is that if there are calls against the chairman of INEC for his removal, is for him to now look inward. What are the reasons for this call? What is giving birth to this disenchantment by other political parties?
Okay. Then
at that point, he must now call what they call a stakeholder meeting to reevaluate the processes leading to the 2003 general elections and see whether any of the processes or steps or procedure have been compromised.
Okay.
Or an attempt to so compromise. For instance, the registration.
Thank you. You just made it clear now that the president is not solely responsible for the removal of the INEC chairman in case of any gross misconduct, because it has to go with two-thirds majority of the Senate, like you just posited. Now, let's look at before removal, and if there is any allegations of misconduct, don't you think, shouldn't a body be formed, or what does the law say concerning investigative body, that will go look into the cases or circumstances or allegations before the public in the office of the INEC chairman?
You see, the INEC chairman technically is appointed by the president.
Okay.
If there are allegations, the allegations and petitions must also go to the president, the appointer, that the persons you appoint to the office of chairman of INEC has erred, has violated the provisions of the law. And when that is done, the president may seek the advice of the Attorney General of the Federation.
Okay.
As to whether or not the allegations have been substantiated enough. And if that is confirmed, the president don't need necessarily to set up any other panel.
Investigative panel?
No. The president can rely on such petitions.
How can such allegations be confirmed if there is no panel that will look into such allegations?
No, for instance, if there are evidence that persons who registered for the 2022, prior to the 2023 elections, have been deregistered. They registered. Maybe you now cancelled it after that decision because you perceive that such candidates or such electorates may support another candidate that is not in the good books of the INEC. You deregistered them. Evidence of such attached to the petition is a ground. It's a solid ground to believe that the processes is capable of being compromised.
Okay, if we look at this case, what you just said now, and we look at the figure being posited by INEC, we're looking at about 2 million persons that have been deregistered, that have been deregistered over double registration, as was being reported. Now, who vets that process to show that what INEC said as in that regard actually was what happened?
Now, once there is a report from INEC that an electorate had been deregistered on grounds of double registration, the first thing is that the double registration must be put forward. Say, for instance, Mr. Ojo or Mr. A registered first in INEC, Ward 6. Unit 7. That same Mr. Ojo or Mr. A, again registered in Ward 8, Unit 5, in the same local government or in another local government. So you put it forward before you deregistered. We are deregistering really persons or grounds that he registered here first and registered. These are the two registrations. That's one.
But in
Now,
this case,
if a person who believes that he only registered once and he has been deregistered by INEC, can initiate a petition.
Okay.
Showcasing that he only registered in so place. His top priests are there. And as such, the other registration purported by INEC is illegal, and as such, he didn't register there. The petition can be sent. Once it's sent, as I said earlier, it's a prima facie evidence that the person only registered one. But as I said, the president can seek the advice of the Attorney General of the Federation. The Attorney General, in his own wisdom, may decide to invite the INEC chairman. This is our in-house to show that this person has written a petition that he only registered once. How come he is disregistered? Of course, he will bring his records why he believes the person should be deregistered. Because when you register, it's both electronic and hard copy.
Okay, but to verify all of this, isn't INEC supposed to publish names of voters in every polling unit?
Of course.
So that those voters can go through and see if their names are on it or not, and then raise complaints.
Of course.
What do you make of that?
Of course. There is a period of which INEC must publish the name of registered voters in every unit. The reason for this is to enable those voters go and verify whether or not their names are captured in the register or the register for the purpose of voting. Now, if of course there are complaints also raised, a room is also given to correct such a number.
Okay, for feedback
and
correction.
That will be done.
Okay.
I think it's between November, I think at the month of November, that register must be published. The reason is that it must give 3 months notice. That is between now and February when the election will kick start.
Okay.
From November now, the register of voters must be published to enable people. That is why they have stopped registration. If you look at it, the continuous voters registration has stopped. The reason is to ensure that they collate and publish for people to react to.
So you are in support of the registration being stopped?
Of course.
Unlike some members of the public that have said that.
When they say continuous,
since they said continuous voter registration,
that's not the meaning.
It should have continued.
No, that's not the meaning. That's why some people give literal interpretation to issues. When they just see the session, they say, yes, the session says so. No. Where the literal interpretation of a statute is going to create a disequilibrium in the system, or is going to bring injustice, then you do not follow the literal interpretation. Or if it's going to lead to ambiguity, you do not use the literal interpretation. You look at the intent. What was the intendment of the lawmakers while making the law? What is the golden rule? Or what was the mischief that session was? If you say they should register, somebody can register until on Friday to the Saturday of the election. You say continuous registration. That's not what it means. But some people will just say it's continuous registration, you register to. No. That's not the meaning of continuous registration.
So it's pedestrian to think that way?
Yeah, it's pedestrian. But people just rely on the session say continuous voters registration. No.
Okay.
INEC, if you look at the provisions, section 1, subsection 1, and section 7 of the Electoral Act, it empowers the INEC to give guidelines. The guidelines. INEC cannot say premise of the guidelines issued pursuant to the Electoral Act as amended. Voters registration must stop at least minimum of 90 days to the elections. The reason is to enable them to prepare. If you continue to register, at what point did you not prepare? At what point will you not bring register of voters out?
Okay, let's look at one of the reasons that Arewa Citizens Watch for Good Governance also made for them calling for the sack or removal of the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu. They cited that in the northern region, where they had a shutdown of network communications, and they had a challenge, and it was expected that looking at the communication breakdown, as a result of that challenge where the police force had to, tackle insecurity in that regard for shutting down communication networks. Isn't INEC supposed to at least provide another way, of giving them an opening, being that they had that challenge in another region? Otherwise, isn't this an attempt to disenfranchise some persons in that region?
No. That is also looking at it on the surface. You see, every system has a challenge. You are talking about technological advancement. That can also be affected by weather conditions. It's like a person, for instance, he books an airplane to go to Lagos, 10 a.m. That is the booking time. That is how I'm supposed to take off. Our weather condition now reveals that this person they can't fly. Can you insist that they must fly because they have said it's 10 o'clock that is in their booking? You cannot. Now, registration is now digital, electronic, and internet-based. There are reasons that sometimes there could be internet fluctuations. This may account for maybe some delays. But those delays are not intended, or such challenges, for the other, are not intended to deprive any section of the country of the opportunity to close register.
No, but we're looking at a situation where there was an emergency situation that warranted the northern region, the state government, where they had to shut down the communication network completely.
Yes.
And that again, like you said, when you have to even go online to register, you need the internet to do that.
Yes.
But if there's a complete shutdown of communication network, that wouldn't fly.
It will not fly.
Isn't that another way of disenfranchising the people?
No.
Or shouldn't there be a leeway to give an opening for such?
No, it is not. You see, there will be no end to litigations.
Okay.
If you continue to create openings, basically comes, you continue to give openings, there will be no end to litigation. It therefore means there are no guidelines to be adhered to. As I told you, the Electoral Act gives power to INEC to have electoral guidelines. And the electoral guidelines are as strong as the provisions of the Constitution and as strong as the provisions of the Electoral Act. Okay. So if there are already guidelines, for instance, continuous voters registration is going to end in March, or for instance, in October this year. That is the guidelines. That does not mean that the registration must contemplate all eventualities and it must accommodate all of them. No. They have given a window that plus and minus, there must be registration, continuous registration must end in October 2022, prior to the elections of February 2023. So, in such situations, registration must stop once the law says it should stop, because that is the guideline given. Otherwise, you have to go and make another guideline or amend your guideline to say that registration will now stop in December. Let's also assume that another section of the country now has another challenge that they could not now register in their zone in December. It means they will also cry out to say, look, when you extended it to December, a section of social area was also having a problem. They couldn't register. Extend it to January. Now you extend it again to January. There will be no end to the guidelines.
Okay.
The guidelines are to guide the conduct of the elections. Okay. So you cannot continue to shift the goalpost. I thought my purpose is because there are issues that were not. You cannot really address human issues in any event.
So by that, INEC didn't err?
No. INEC didn't err. Because they added the consent. I said the law says INEC have the power to make guidelines for the elections. Okay. They are working within the time of the guideline, the timelines of the guideline. It's only when they have obviated, if they have acted contrary to the provisions of the Electoral Act and contrary to the regulations contained in the guideline, then they have erred. All right. If they are still working within the ambit of the Electoral Act and in concert with the regulations, then they have not erred. The people are only asking for a favor. They are also asking, oh, look, can't you bend backwards from your electoral your guideline? Can't you amend? That is all they are asking for. Okay. The question now is that whether or not the INEC chairman or the commission has a discretion on such request. Do they have administrative discretion? Yes, of course. The commission have what is called unfettered administrative discretion, because that's what makes it independent.
All right.
Otherwise, the president can also call him and say, some of my family members have not registered, please extend it.
Extend it.
It means that his independence have been interfered with. In any system, there must be a challenge.
Okay. Okay, let's ask this. In a situation where there is calls for INEC chairman's removal, now pressurizes the president, and the president now acts same by removing the INEC chairman with the two-third majority of the Senate. Now, will it have an impact on the election, looking at the time lag that we have before the elections?
Well, as the INEC chairman's removal has no any impact on the elections, because it is not the chairman of INEC that conducts elections. It is the Electoral Commission. And the chairman himself is also a commissioner. He's just called the Chief Electoral Commissioner. He's a commissioner just as we have 12 national commissioners. He's just a commissioner. He's presiding, he becomes the chairman. But he's a commissioner himself. So we have 12 other national electoral commissioners who can take over and conduct the election, primarily because, as I said, the commission is an institution to conduct election. It is not the chairman of INEC that conducts election, but the commission. So the commission has capable hands that can proceed with the election in the event that the president removes him based on this allegation.
But you can't tell if whoever is coming in may be acting on a script given to it by an executive power to do the otherwise. Or are you saying that such cannot influence the officers as it trickles down on the electoral umpire?
It cannot, because if you look at the body is independent, and the persons appointed are persons of integrity. They are persons who do not have any political affiliation. And if they do before the appointment, immediately they are appointed, they cease to be members of any political party.
Okay.
So they are persons of high integrity, they are persons of questionable character, they are persons of high disposition who cannot be influenced by the president or any other member. So they will discharge the functions of the commission credibly in the event that the chairman is removed.
In case you're just joining us, it's Law and You, and we are looking at the topic before us, which is on the calls on INEC chairman removal, looking at the legal implications of this. And I've been joined by a very versatile and articulate legal practitioner in the person of Sunday Daudu. And I'm the host, Philip Omo Gyupong. Let's stretch this discussion a bit further by looking at the one of the complaints also raised by the group, the Northern Group, Arewa Citizens Watch for Good Governance. They also raised the aspect of the beavers and some certain allegations about a particular force that's trying to influence the electoral umpire to deactivate beavers in the forthcoming 2023 elections. Now, the electoral laws are there that established the deployment of this cutting-edge technology, which is quite a huge improvement in the electoral process, because way back before the president signed this amendment act bill into law, there was so much calls, from different quarters pressurizing the president to quickly sign that into law. Now it has come into law. Now, does INEC have discretion to deactivate or to continue or to modify the use of beavers?
Now, let me, you see, that is why I said there are guidelines. I think those insinuating, they have not read the guidelines INEC have dosed out. The INEC guideline contemplates situations where, for instance, during elections, there may likely be no network in some areas. That does not mean you are deactivating.
Okay.
Now, in such situations, INEC also have powers to adopt manual.
That is to suspend beavers.
Yes.
In such areas.
In such areas, because he can no longer transmit the research results. If he cannot technologically transmit, he cannot technologically vote, you cannot be technologically accredited, you cannot use it. It's not as if they are deactivating it. It's because it is not functional, premise on maybe network fluctuations. It's not as if,
but if we are to, if INEC has such powers or discretion, and in such areas where such anomaly could take place, wouldn't it bring room for suspicion?
No,
in terms of
the reason is
rigging?
that,
because
no,
if you suspend beavers in such areas, it could accommodate
no,
a
it
process
doesn't.
where you can't really take hold as an
No,
electoral umpire
it doesn't.
on giving a fair electoral process.
No, it doesn't. What it is done is that once the situation is noticed in some area, the party agents are called. The security agents are called.
Okay.
This is the challenges this section or this ward or this unit or this polling unit is facing.
Okay.
Now they ask, should we suspend elections here? Or you allow manual voting, for instance?
Okay.
They will say, oh, we do not want any voting because we believe it will be compromised if it is manually done. If that is the decisions of all of them, it's suspended.
Okay, so that means to say that
So everybody has
INEC has discretion
He
in
has
that
discretion
regard.
in that regard.
But such must come with tenable reasons.
Tenable reasons that
right.
it was because it is
All right.
not functional. But INEC will not on its own just deactivate the beavers on grounds of maybe compromising the process.
Okay.
And we
Thank
cannot
you.
also speculate. We cannot also speculate that INEC will likely deactivate beavers on the day of election or prior to the day of election in order to compromise the process.
Okay, thank you so much for taking our time to be part of the discussion. I just hope we do this same time as we are availed with the opportunity to have you on set with us.
Thank you very much.
All right, this is much we can take on Law and You. We do this on the next one. I'm Philip Omo Gyupo.